This is the Wannabe Saints podcast, where we take virtues and try to break them down so they become tangible and applicable to your life.
We aren't here to bring you advice, we're here to bring you virtue. I'm Jordyn.
And I'm Rachel.
We're your hosts,
and this is Wannabe Saints.
So fun.
All right, welcome to Wannabe Saints podcast. I figured today we should skip our what are we working on, because I'm sure it's going to be somewhat of a long episode.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay, so today we have with us
One of my best friends, Cecilia Brennan. We've known each other since high school. And anyways, we decided to have her on today because she is a living example of the virtue of fortitude.
Yeah. So before we let Cece introduce herself, the format of this episode is one we haven't done before, but we thought would be kind of fun to do. So she is someone that we see living fortitude out throughout her whole life. And we thought it would be fun to have an interview format of what does it look like to have fortitude through all different stages of somebody's life. So, Cece, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, well, first of all, I was so honored that you asked me. Number one, asked me to be on the Wannabe Saints podcast, but then also was like, we're going to speak about fortitude and you're going to be our guest. I'm like, oh my gosh, humbled, but also like, shoot, what's fortitude? I think I got to read up on my virtues. No, it was great. Yeah, I'm Cecilia Brennan, Catholic wife, mother. Yeah, just moved to Maryland, Virginia. Wow. Oh my gosh, just moved to Maryland, Virginia. It's literally not even that. Clearly haven't been here long and haven't had enough coffee. Just moved to Annapolis, Maryland. Goodness, from Kentucky. And I have a almost 1-year-old daughter, so it's kind of a little bit about me.
What's her actual birthday again?
May 20th, so she's 11 months.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I know. So yeah, and I've known Jordyn since high school, and we really didn't become friends till like later in high school and after high school. And
Yeah, after I moved away and then we weren't in the same school anymore.
High school drama as it goes. So
Isn't that how they always start, right? You don't like the person at first and then you become best friends. Because not that I didn't know you, but I was like, there ain't no way we're going to be friends. And now we're best friends, so it's good. And that's how it worked for you.
Except Jordyn and I had we on paper made sense to be friends, but it was almost like too similar. So
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Liking the same boys. Mm-hmm.
Like it's
Exactly.
Homeschooled, Catholic, all things.
this girl came in trying to steal my niche, steal my identity.
So funny.
So funny.
Oh, man. All right. Well, before we get into some questions with you about fortitude and just like your life, I figured you didn't really know what fortitude was. We should probably tell the people a quick breakdown of what fortitude is.
Yeah, let's do that.
So there's a couple definitions that I'll read because fortitude is one of the 4 cardinal virtues, but it's also a gift of the Holy Spirit. So it's also, I would say for you, Cece, that it's something that's just naturally been in you. It's in all of us, but that's especially a gift that you have. And I don't know you well. It's just from what I do know. And I think people will see that. So the definition of fortitude from the Catechism says that it ensures firmness in difficulties and consistency in the pursuit of the good. It strengthens the resolve to resist temptation to overcome obstacles in the moral life. The virtue of fortitude enables one to conquer fear, even fear of death, and to face trials and persecution. Jordyn can take her take on this, but I would just say that even just from what I know about like your relationship with Patrick and all of that, God just keeps putting in front of you. You have no choice but to like go through these things.
Yeah.
And your positivity and the way you handle these things, you have no choice but to keep going through certain trials, and you handle that with grace. And I would say that that's the fortitude. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I feel like every phase of your life of just growing up, moving to LA, and then it was like COVID hit a few
Yeah.
months later, and then figuring out how to like get out of LA, and then moving to DC on your own, and meeting Patrick, starting your company, moving to Japan. Every little thing has just been, yeah,
Out of left field, really.
yeah.
Yeah.
Trial after trial. When you try to make some big exciting change in your life, it's like, here's something to throw you a little curveball. Can't talk. Curveball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're so right. Like lots of curveballs, and I'm not good at playing catch, like at all. I'm just like taking it to the face.
Oh man. Well, I mean, you seem like you're good at handling it. So, but then the gift, fortitude as a gift is so I got this from actually the consecration to Saint Joseph. In the back, they have all the gifts of the Holy Spirit. And I really like their breakdown of it. So that's the one I'm going to read. So it says, the gift of fortitude strengthens the soul against natural fear and supports us in the performance of duty. Fortitude imparts to the will an impulse and energy, which move it to undertake without hesitancy the most arduous tasks, to face dangers, to trample underfoot human respect, and to endure without complaint the slow martyrdom of even lifelong tribulation. That last part is what,
Seriously.
yeah, just lifelong. So, do you want to read this part?
Yeah, sure. The gift of fortitude brings to those who have it a dauntless spirit of resolution, firmness of mind, and indomitable will to persevere with a quiet faith in God's providence that overcomes all obstacles. It also brings courage to persist in the practice of virtue despite trials, illness, persecution, or external failure. A Catholic who becomes fervent in God's service will soon be condemned by the world, but the gift of fortitude will sustain him as he walks towards the cross.
So that's all just takes on fortitude as a gift.
No, I love that because I think with fortitude, it's obviously a gift. So, which is incredible because you can continue to cultivate what's naturally given to you, but it's also something that can be learned as well. And I think the biggest thing with fortitude is the more you do something, you grow in like competence of doing it. And that's what brings that confidence. So doing hard things, the harder things you do, when another trial comes in your way or a cross that God's asking you to carry, you're even more confident that you can do it because of the past trials that you have endured. So it's kind of like this building of competence to then be confident walking into the next one, even if it's like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea why, but I did XYZ and God led me through that. Therefore, I can do this next thing, even if I'm doing it blindly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, so how would you describe your childhood upbringing into like creating who you are as a person today? How would you describe how you were built?
Yeah, well, I think what's really cool is you use the word create because I think I was given a lot of freedom to create who I am. So there wasn't very much of this forced to be this, forced to kind of fit into this box. Like how we grew up wasn't very mainstream. It was kind of out of the box. Homeschooled through up until middle school, but I think what my parents wanted is to think outside the box and be able to develop creativeness in their kids and open-mindedness. And I think that's really what they did. But my parents separated, and my dad ended up raising my brothers and I for pretty much the majority of my childhood. And
How
so
old were you when your parents separated?
5th grade.
Okay.
So then we went into public school. And yeah, even looking back, I just see the way my dad has such grit and such determination that it was hard not for that. Like it would be impossible for that not to rub off on his children because of how hard we saw him worked and so many impossible situations that he not only got himself out of and through, but standing up tall and walking out of and with a positive attitude. And so to be able to see him kind of get through, whatever it is, 8-10 year long divorce, a lot of money, like just kind of craziness of just a craziness shadow, and walking out of that and raising 3 kids along the way that, didn't end up in jail and drugs and whatever. Truly, like the amount of people.
3 great solid kids, honestly.
Thank you. Yeah. So, and the amount of people that were like, I don't know how you did that without your kids like ending up who knows where, and whether it was lawyers that said that or, so many people said that. And it's truly by the grace of God that we all are, have a good head on our shoulders. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about the background, but I kind of started, we always went to church, we always went to Catholic mass, but we weren't catechized, I would say. That wasn't something that was like a big factor in our homeschooling or, supplementary to our public school. It was just kind of like we go to church on Sundays, but there was a lot of that freedom there to be involved or not be involved, which I think specifically for my personality is actually what I needed. I think that if it was something that was, you are going to be heavily involved in this no matter what, and you don't have a say, I think I would have probably reacted not as well to it as having the freedom to choose. And, parents go about it different way, but I think that's what my dad had the capacity for, was the freedom. If you want to be involved, this great. If you're not, this is kind of like the furthest alligator from the boat right now in my life. So I think that actually worked out really well, but there was a consistency there and a discipline there of always going to church every Sunday. And then when our parish built an adoration chapel, a perpetual one, our family, they needed volunteers to, have an hour at the chapel. And so we had Tuesday nights at 6, or maybe it was Tuesday nights at 7. We had an hour. And so every Tuesday night we would bring our homework and we would each take, there was 2 brothers, me and my dad, we would each take 15-minute, like quarter of the pie, and have time in adoration. And then while we were waiting for our turn, we'd be doing our homework and stuff. So that was every Tuesday for, gosh, years and years. And I definitely attest that to my faith, because God can be working and you don't need to know he's working. Like, I didn't know what adoration was. I didn't understand what the Eucharist was or the real presence. None of that it was never explained to me, in any sort of religious education, 8th grade confirmation class, which, by the way, way too young for confirmation, because you don't take anything seriously in the 8th grade.
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
Because the whole time you're just looking at boys from other schools. So, like, that's what confirmation class is. Come on, everyone knows that. And
it's true.
So funny.
Yeah. But I attest that adoration, that time, to my faith, because I always say it's kind of like vitamin D. You don't necessarily, like, you can be outside, like, playing in the sun and sitting out there, but you don't necessarily feel the vitamin D like beating into your skin and doing all the things that vitamin D does. But kind of like Jesus, like, you're just sitting in the true presence. You have no idea what that's doing for you, but that allotted time and that exposure to Jesus does so much more than you can ever imagine underneath or beneath the surface.
I've said before that, like, when you go to adoration, you think you're adoring Christ, but in reality, he's adoring you. Like, you're the one who leaves fulfilled and happy and peaceful and joyful. Yes, he's happy that you're there, but you're not changing who God is. He's changing who you are. So it's like he's actually just adoring you, sitting there in his presence.
Yeah, no, that's such a good comparison. But yeah, that's truly what it, like, adoration, the Eucharist changes lives and you don't even know it's changing your life. So I think it's just this underneath, like, strength. There was a lot of, like, perseverance, determination, things like that throughout my childhood. But there was also a lot of that I didn't even know was happening. You know, you make choices, and so I was a competitive gymnast. So that was a choice I made to continue to do gymnastics, to work really hard. That's not something that just comes naturally. You know, you have to on purpose work hard to develop those skills. But also, just through different trials that God puts in your way, you don't even comprehend that you're developing these skills until one day you kind of sit down like something like this and you reflect on it and you're like, gosh, wow, it looks so messy to me, but looking from this bird's eye view of how God sees it, or how, you know, other great friends see it, it's like, wow, this is actually really kind of crazy and incredible, and such a blessing that these skills developed so naturally. It's so many moments felt like, yes, God is like sharpening me, you know, it's like chiseling away at me. But those little moments are so small in the grand scheme of thing. It doesn't feel like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that
I'm
makes
sure you
sense.
wouldn't have like looked back at thinking like, oh yeah, I'm building fortitude with my life. Like you weren't sitting here planning that or thinking that along the way or whatever.
Yeah, for
No,
sure.
that's exactly, yes, that's a perfect way to put it. Never in my life
So-
was I working on the skill of fortitude, you know.
For sure. Yeah. Kind of going back, when your parents separated, how did you cope with that as a young kid? Did you have coping, or did you just kind of like, it was like kind of just powering through?
Yeah, I think it was just the grind because I was a gymnast 20 to 24 hours a week and I was going to school. So I just wasn't home a lot, honestly. And I was just like working my butt off at the gym, you know, Monday through Saturday. And that's what I
So it wasn't
did.
like time to sit there and really sulk and that sort of thing.
No.
Yeah.
And so I was really lucky in that aspect because I just kept myself busy, which is actually a fatal flaw.
Oh man.
So funny. You know, obviously you said that your dad was like bringing you guys and raising you guys, but at what point do you feel like you really started choosing the faith for yourself?
I would say like I chose faith before I understood even what that even meant. Like
Yeah.
I definitely identified as a Christian, and I think that was like it was definitely part of my identity, but I didn't understand what prayer was. Like I didn't understand the difference between like being a non-Catholic Christian and being a Catholic. That wasn't something that I had even conceptualized or knew the history about, or anything. But I think once, I don't know, probably, I don't know how it developed. People just knew I went to church, and just was like, yeah, I go to church, and no, I'm not sleeping with you. And therefore, I'm this Christian girl. I don't know. Like it just kind of developed naturally, and I leaned into it. And I think like a lot of my friends, they had these like sit down talks with their moms, and they put them on birth control, and you know, it was like, this is what you can do and this is what you can't do. And that never was a conversation for me. And so, you know, in high school, you're dating guys and whatnot. And because that was never a conversation that I had had, I was like, well, what's the default? The default is my religion. Like I was just kind of like going in order of like, okay, so my parents didn't say anything. Therefore, like, what does the next kind of appropriate realm of teaching say? Like the rules, quote unquote. And it was like, okay, I hardly know anything about the Catholic faith or religion, but like culturally, you wait to sleep with someone until you're married. Like and it wasn't something that I even learned at church. It was something, you know, you watch TV shows, you read books or whatever, like they'll make fun of, you know, the lightheart, you know, lightly make fun of like the Christian virgin in the corner, you know, whatever.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so it was a cultural thing that developed my understanding of what that was. And
You're
so I was like,
I'm the Christian girl, so I'm
yeah,
not gonna do that.
exactly.
That's
That's
so
exactly
interesting.
what it was.
And also
Yeah.
such a grace though, that
Yeah.
like that's
You're like
that developed in you even without being told that by your parents.
Mm-hmm.
That's impressive. And honestly, it probably goes back to that adoration time where you just don't even know God's working on you. And he's
Right.
just like instilling in you
But it also
this
goes
natural
back
thing.
to like the freedom that I was given to kind of like choose what my interests were. And instead of having like, this is what you're going to do, this is what you're going to study, this is how you're going to be, this is what, you should be when you grow up, like all these things, like none of that was pressed on us. And so I was able to kind of freely develop that for myself, which can go really south really fast for certain personalities. But it was really, really great for me to, like Jordyn said in the beginning, create who I wanted to be. And so I just kind of like adapted to that and was like, well, I don't really have another reason. So I guess I'm just going to default to what Christianity says. So I just went with that. And that kind of shaped my identity. But I wouldn't say my friends were like, I had friends who like adapted to Buddhism in high school, and that's what they did. And they would go every week. And, I would sleep over at a friend's house and go to church with them, go to their mega church or whatever on Sundays. Like I didn't understand that like you needed to go to Catholic Mass every Sunday or anything, much less the concept of confession.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I think that was one of yours and my first conversations of like, we were like, oh, you're Catholic? I'm Catholic. Let's
Be
What
Catholic.
do you think? Let's be Catholic. And so I think we were having the conversation of what's the difference of a mortal sin and a venial sin? And I was like, well, it's like a mortal sin to not go to mass on Sunday, like a Catholic mass. And then if you have a mortal sin, you can't receive communion. You're like, what? You're like, that's a mortal sin? I can't go to communion? Because like you'd said, like you'd had sleepovers and just gone to your friends' churches with them.
Yeah.
And so I think it was shortly after that that you were like, do you want to get coffee and go to confession on Wednesday? Because I had it at noon or whatever always, or 11 o'clock on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
And I was like, sure. But even for myself, it was weird because growing up, I was raised Catholic too, but we only went to confession before Christmas and Easter growing up.
Okay.
So when you asked me to go,
Well, it's not time yet.
I mean, it's June and I just went back in April before Easter. So I guess we'll go.
And now you go like
And now we
every
go, like,
week or
weekly, monthly, couple times a month, whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
No, it
but
is
yeah.
funny because Jordyn was such a big player because I never like once you have, but that's like what the conscience is, right? Once you
Yeah.
have awareness, then you have to take action. And that's
Yeah.
like a very natural, innate thing in us as humans is once you know what the right thing is to do, to want to do it. And so praise God for Jordyn because yeah, we were getting Starbucks. We worked at the same place and we were at Starbucks and she just kind of started like spilling all this stuff out. But Jordyn, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but it was almost like you didn't realize that what you knew was special. Like you
No,
didn't
it
know
looked
that this was even
just normal.
information. Yeah,
Right.
because it was just engraved in you.
Right. And to me, it was just like, isn't this just common knowledge? You're Catholic and this is what it is. Like,
Right. And I was like, Jordyn, no, I don't know any of this. And I was telling Jordyn, I was like, I think I'm gonna try out maybe like I want to be involved in my faith, and I identified as a Christian, but I wanted to know more. And so I was like, well, maybe I should try, the non-mega churches were really big in our area. And Jordyn, I don't know if you remember this, but you had said something along the lines of, well, why don't you just learn a little bit more about Catholicism? Because it seems like less work to just learn about the thing that you're already part of than trying to change to something new. And I
I
was
do
like,
not remember that.
yeah. And I was like, that is less work. Yeah, I should just do that.
Lazy way about becoming a better Catholic and trying to figure out something else.
That's
you're-
so funny.
Yeah, you're just like, it just seems like more work to try something new. Why don't you just see if you like what you have?
That is so funny.
And I
That's
was like,
awesome.
yeah, that sounds actually really smart. I was like, but here's the thing. I don't relate to anyone at church. Like everyone is old or weird. And
Yeah.
Jordan's like, yeah, I mean, you're kind of right. And so, because I never got the youth group kids. That was never someone,
Right.
and I'm not saying I'm cooler than them or better than them. Not at all. I would have been a better person if I probably hung out with them. But like, I just didn't, like, I wasn't going to sit there and play like catechism trivia or strum a guitar around the fire. Like, those things just like snap my neck. Like, I honestly, truly, like in high school, I would play catechism trivia now, but like as a 17-year-old,
You'd be a
absolutely
great youth
not.
group kid now.
I really
That-
would. So funny. I never jived with those kids either, honestly.
I was the youth group kid. I was the well, my
We met.
listen,
We did.
listen. It was also not by choice. Okay, my parents started the youth group, and then my sister took it over. I was by default. I had to be the youth group kid.
Yes.
I also didn't always get along with the people, but I was that kid.
So funny. So yeah.
Guitar and all. I know
There
it.
you go.
I play it.
She was the guitar kid.
I led praise and worship sometimes, okay?
Here we go. Yeah, the minute a guitar came out, I was out. I'm like, I don't sing, and I also don't want to watch everyone else sing. It's like watching
You
a
know-
bad American Idol audition.
That's so accurate. I'm not good at it. Like, there's a reason I don't do it anymore. Oh gosh. And then I went to Franciscan, which is really fitting because
Yes.
everyone there just plays guitar and sings. So,
Or thinks they can, yeah.
yep,
So funny.
true.
So yeah, I
Oh,
mean, that's
gosh.
kind of how it happened. But I remember we were like, well, maybe we should try to find people that are like us. Like, do you think there's like young adults that still practice Catholicism? Like, me not understanding that Catholicism is the biggest religion in the entire world, like me having no exposure, understanding.
So funny.
And so
Like
I
St. Mary's and Huntley, and that was it.
yes, that's it. I was like, this is the faith. Yeah, there's like a small dinky church in Hampshire, but these are the only Catholic churches in the world. This isn't, they say it's universal, but like, I'm just not really understanding. And so we were at Starbucks. I'm pretty sure that's when we Googled like young adult conference Catholic.
Yes, and you found the one in Houston.
You know, it's just like in a few months, and we got off work and we were like, let's do a girls' trip, but like also go
Yeah.
to this conference.
Uh-huh.
That's awesome. So would you say that the conference would be when you were like, oh, I actually really want this?
I
I'm
think
gonna
I
choose-
wanted it before, but I think the conference was a realization of, oh, I just live in a bubble. Like these people, it was almost this like hunger for wanting more information, wanting to surround myself with people like that, wanting to live this lifestyle. Because you have to, if you're going to be a devout Catholic, you have to 100% choose the lifestyle. Like
Yeah.
it encompasses everything. And you have so many, like eventually you will have many decisions that you need to make as far as who you want to be and who you want to hang out with and how you're going to live your life, spend your money. Like everything kind of changes. And so once I saw, oh my gosh, all these people, they're in adoration and they're normal and like they really know a lot about the faith and they're having a fun time and they're having a mixed drink, but like also liking Jesus. There was like this dichotomy that I was trying to wrap my mind around of, okay, if I'm going to be a devout Catholic, I need to, you know, only wear skirts and I need to look like these people in my parish and I need to be quote unquote boring or whatever this is. It was like, if I'm going to be Catholic, I have to fit into this box. But once I kind of went out of the bubble, which I think, gosh, I wish a lot of people could, they realize, oh, I don't have to look a certain way or act a certain way to be Catholic. I can be who I am and develop myself as a Catholic and choose what I want
makes
that.
you even like more alive as who you are.
Yes.
Once you decide to start living the Catholic version of yourself.
Yeah.
I feel
because
like
that's
it
why
grows you even more.
exactly. Yeah. Who you're
rather
made to
than
be,
crunching
right?
you into this little Catholic box thing.
Yes. And so that's why I always felt like, oh, I don't fit at church. I need to try a different church because I didn't see myself in other people and I didn't want to, and nothing wrong with the people that were there. I just couldn't relate to them. You know, I wasn't 45 with kids in elementary school, but I also wasn't 16 playing, you know, church trivia. Like I wasn't this, I was neither. And so, and then, you know, not growing up with a mother kind of representing what faith looks like in the house as a woman, it was very, where do I fit? And so kind of just establishing, oh, I don't need to fit. I can just be. and that's it. B period, you know? And obviously, like, it was great having Jordyn too, because we had so many of the same interests and kind of like, I mean, your fire, again, I don't want to speak for you, but like your fire was kind of lit at the same time. And so we kept just kind of like diving in, holding each other accountable, like just really, we were really, really hungry for more at the same time.
Yeah, because you and I became friends like right around the same time Kyle and I started dating, and he was always challenging me because he didn't have a faith. So it was kind of like having this friend who's hungry for more, and then having Kyle who was challenging everything I knew in me from my beginning. It was definitely fuel to the fire.
You had no choice but to
Grow and learn. And well, if I'm going to kind of show this guy what it's about, I have to live it out and I have to know it more. And then having you helping it too, it was like we were just learning together and growing and all of that. So
It was such a good time. It was so
it was
fun.
literally perfect timing of becoming friends and growing and
Yeah.
everything.
And I'm not to say like Jordyn and I did a lot of stupid stuff. Like
Totally.
it wasn't just this like black and white thing like, oh, now we're choosing to be Catholic, you know? It seeped in slowly.
Yeah, it did.
You're like, we're still going to parties and stuff.
For
but,
sure.
Yeah, and then we're like, oh, right. Okay. So, because you have to have that light bulb moment for yourself in order to own the life that you're going to live. Again, especially the personality. And like, I was just very strong willed. Like, I didn't want anything forced on me. I had to come and find it and then choose it.
So I'm kind of assuming that this question has already sort of been answered. One of the questions that I wrote up was, how did choosing and stepping into faith challenge or transform the way you saw yourself, your past, and your purpose? But I feel like because of your personality and the freedom you had and that it was gradual, that, you know, you can say whatever you want, but the way that you're describing that you came into your faith, it was just so natural. There wasn't this point that it was like, I've got to change this. I regret all these things. You're very like, oh, my past is my past, and I'm just moving forward from here.
No, I get what you're
Is it making
asking.
sense what I'm saying?
It was like a very smooth flow, but I think it was really cool kind of looking back. You know, I'm only like 18, 19 at that point, but looking back and being like, wow, God saved me from that decision. God saved me from that maybe bad, you know, weird situation. Like so many times seeing how just one good decision kind of impacted the other good decision, impacted the other. And it was just like this, I don't know, swirl of little moments that built up to where I was, and little moments of God protecting me or God guiding me, even though I had no exposure and a little bit of exposure, obviously the Eucharist every Sunday. That's a pretty big exposure, but no actual understanding. But I think also once I like had this hunger, I literally called up my parish priest and I said, hey, I was hoping you could teach me how to pray. And he was like, yeah, so that's called spiritual direction. Is that something you want to do? I was like, yeah. Okay. How about once a week? And so I would go like once a week, once every other week for like an hour to 90 minutes, and he would teach me how to pray. And
That's
it
awesome.
it was life-changing. And it was Father Grismer who married Jordyn. Incredible, holy priest. I still will look up homilies and just to listen to them, because I've never met a priest who you can so visibly see the spirit working in him through his like hand motions, through his eyes, through the way he talks and the tempo that he talks. It's so visibly the Holy Spirit within Father that it's just like this, oh my gosh, like it just radiates. It's like the vitamin Jesus is coming out from him and like beaming on me. It's very contagious, you know, and I feel so lucky that I was able to be impacted so personally by him.
Yeah.
So we did that for like a year and a half. Yeah.
That's crazy how long that was for.
And how old were you when you started spiritual direction with him?
Like 19, 20. And I remember he was like, so, you know, is married, like we were talking about vocation. He's like, have you ever thought about like religious life. I was like, well, I do want to get married. He's like, so you have to, starting from square one with me is like discernment. This is what discernment is, whatever. And I was like, well, if I don't end up finding someone, I'll just like freeze my eggs and it'll be fine. He's like, so, that's like not like we were starting from like zero.
He's like, no, you can't do that.
That's not like,
Oh
yeah.
man.
So, yeah, it was a whole rundown.
Yeah.
so funny.
That's amazing though. Yeah.
But like,
And yeah,
like,
you had
I
such a
think
good priest for
back-
that.
I think back and I'm like, how could you not know? But it's like, I'm living in the world, but I'm not doing these quote unquote bad things. So I like had one foot in, one foot out. I wasn't raised in this Catholic culture. Like I don't know that. Like I don't know anything about the pro-life movement. I didn't even really know what abortion was. Like I had no exposure to any of it. So
crazy.
So kind of moving on to this realm, your Instagram, your social media. Were you trying to be an influencer or whatever on Instagram prior to growing your faith?
yeah.
Or yeah.
So I was interning for a fashion blogger that started before Instagram existed. So like 2016 is when people started like blogging on Instagram, but she was blogging on an actual blog prior to that. So I would take her photos. She was teaching me all the back end. Actual blogs is how people were making money doing that and having like sponsorships and like having like it was a whole thing. And then Instagram came about and she was kind of showing me the ropes. So we would get together once a week and I would take all her photos and she would walk me through all her back end stuff. Like it was kind of like a trade. She taught me as I did things for her. And so she was kind of helping me build my brand. And I just wanted to be like a fashion blogger like she did. And it was really, really cool. And then once I started diving into my faith and oh my gosh, because I remember when I was in high school and right out of high school, I remember searching on Instagram like Catholic fashion or like Catholic girl makeup, like or just like Catholic fashion woman, like any like key, because you would just like search by keywords. It was kind of like that, like through hashtags, like way back when. And I was like, gosh, if only because again, I was like searching for what a Catholic woman looked like. And so I just needed this like validation of, okay, if she looks normal and she looks like someone I would hang out with and she's practicing her Catholic faith, then like I could do that. I just needed some sort of relatability to grasp onto to continue to grow and the encouragement and develop who I wanted to be. But I couldn't find that. And so as I started go ahead.
Did you have anyone like in your life that you kind of could look to for that or no?
No.
Okay.
No one. No one that I was like, that's who I want to be like. There was a lot. For instance, my aunt, like she's incredible. Like I want to be like her, but she also wasn't Catholic. So there was like little or big parts of people and their personalities and how they loved people that I wanted to replicate. But there wasn't this one person that I was like, gosh, if I end up like them, like I did something right. It wasn't like this big thing. And so I remember I was watching The Bachelor and it was Ben Higgins' season. And there was a contestant, Becca Tilley, and she was a virgin on the show. And she like loved fashion. She loved fashion, loved makeup. When she got off the show, she like had a fashion blog right when kind of Instagram was developing as well. And I was like, oh my gosh, like she's so into her faith. Like she saved herself for marriage. Like this is so cool. Like she's what I want to be like. Fast forward, she's been dating a woman for 7-8 years. So totally went, talk about a curveball. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. But she's who I look to because I was like, she is interested in the same stuff I am. If she can do it, I can do it. And so that's kind of when I started to develop my social media, because like no one on social media was quote unquote Catholic. No one was developing Catholic content. And what's so cool now is like there's such a community doing that. But literally it was me and McLean from A Catholic Convo on social media. It was just her and I. That's it. And that was 2016, 2017, 2018. And but I knew if I searched for this, other women had to have searched for this. Like, I'm not the only one thinking this. And so that's kind of how it developed. And so it kind of also held me accountable to keep growing, because I wasn't going to create content just to create content. I was going to create content because I felt like the Holy Spirit was moving me to create content.
Like intentional content.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so your Instagram, your social media started out with faith anyway. So that's awesome. But as you've grown, has it been hard to choose to speak out on certain things, or have you lost followers because of certain opinions or things that you're now talking about? Because obviously conversion is ongoing. So like who you started out as even on Instagram is probably crazy different to now. And so was it hard to always just keep putting out your beliefs?
I think it was at first, especially when you still care what people from school thought, you know? But
Yeah.
I mean,
your only
like,
followers at first were like whoever was following you from high school or whatever.
right, exactly. So that's what's hard. But like now I mean, it was just this, I was like, I don't even remember like hardly anyone's names from high school anymore. So it was just kind of like whatever. But I think it gets a lot easier because the mission and the purpose is so much bigger than what someone thinks about you. Because you're like, if I change what someone thinks about God, that is 10 times more impactful than me thinking about what Susie Q thinks about my stance on killing children in the womb. That's so much greater. Like, it's so much more worth it, you know? And like that mean comment at the end of the day, not a big deal, you know? Like they truly do not know.
Yeah.
So
have you had a lot of people, I'm sure over the years you have, but people that get mad at you and then you're arguing with them over social media, or do you just kind of like ignore all those things because you're just like, it's not what this is about? Or do you
I used to argue back for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I used to argue back a lot. It's probably been like 5-6 years ago. And now I'm just like, okay, if I'm going to take 20 minutes to literally argue with you in my DMs, what can I do in 20 minutes that's so much more impactful to my priorities in my life? So prioritizing.
Like, I'm not going to waste 20 minutes arguing with you.
Right. It's like God, husband, child work. And so it's, if I'm spending 20 minutes on someone that's literally just in there to troll, like I'm neglecting my other duties to God, my husband, and my child, you know? So it's just not worth it, because I'm always trying to keep those priorities in my mind, and how I say yes to something has to align with that. So not anymore, but I am tempted sometimes, because I still am a little fiery. So like part of me does, but I'm just like, it's not worth it. Like sometimes I'll spend 5 minutes typing something up and I'm like, no, I'm just not going to do it. Like, this is not worth it. Because usually I have to check myself, because usually it's for my own pride and not helping them seek to understand, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm like, this is not the right thing.
For sure. And honestly, most of those people that are angry are probably not going to respond anyway, like listen to what you're saying. Yeah.
Yes. Exactly.
So what advice would you give someone who wants to reflect their faith more openly online, but feels nervous about making that transition?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is, well, first of all, like, be really clear in your purpose, because it's so easy to get wrapped up in, I want to be like this person, so I'm going to do it. Or I want to be like, I want this to look like that. I want the perks that this person has. Whatever it is, your purpose has to be so clearly defined for yourself, and set on the altar and put in front of God and be like, this is exactly what I want and why. It's not like, oh, well, I really want my life to look like hers, so therefore I should do this, because it's just like this warped kind of thing. And, good intent. What is it, like the pathway to hell is paved with good
Paved with
intentions?
good intentions.
Yeah. And so you have to be so clear, because especially in social media, it can be the greatest gift, but also like the biggest destroyer of someone's who they are and their confidence. And so you have to be in a good place if you're going to start evangelizing. I mean, anyway, it's like a priest has to be in a good place within his relationship with God in order to be able to serve his people well. It's the same thing. I mean, obviously more clear in the priesthood, but we're just talking about social media here. But like, if I'm not in a good place with my relationship with God, like I'm not posting. Like, I don't have anything to say. Like, there's months where I go without anything because I'm not just going to sit here and try to like create something because it's time to create something based on the algorithm. Like, I'm not going to force something like that. It needs to flow naturally. And so I think you just have to decide, like, what is the purpose and why am I doing this? And then also check yourself with pride. Like, am I doing this because the attention and feels good and the likes of the dopamine hit feel good? Because, it's very easy to get sucked into that. Or am I doing this because I want to change someone's heart on this topic? And I think that God can speak through me to like, even if it affects one person, like it's worth it. So I think it's really easy to just intentions can be morphed in a blink of an eye. It can. I don't know if that's advice, but it's definitely something that
Great. No, I
the
think
line to
that's-
toe.
Yeah. No, I think that's a perfect answer. Remembering why you're doing it and the intentionality behind it. So, do you have any questions in this realm?
No, I think that's all great. Why don't we go into like your entrepreneurship and your business and lifestyle and stuff like that. So why don't you just give a little explanation of what your company is and how you started it, and even give a little explanation of the name, because I love the name.
Yes.
So yeah, why don't you give a little description on that?
Yeah, I actually haven't told you this yet, Jordyn, because it just happened, but Friday, so we're recording this Monday, so Friday was actually my last day at the company.
No way.
Yeah, I resigned my portion of my stake in the company.
Wow.
And yeah, so like nothing bad. I just haven't said anything because I've been trying to figure out. It's another like big step of courage.
Totally.
But still love the company. So back in 2021, me and 3 other women started a company called West of Perfection. And the name is old churches. So prior to the Protestant Reformation, churches always faced east. And so when you walked into a church, the Eucharist was always east. So the altar was always like on the east direction. And so when you walk into a church, you're facing the altar, you are west of the altar, you're west of Jesus, Jesus being perfection. So you're west of perfection. And so that's how the name established. And it was initially, the company was initially developed to support women who work and to develop and form the human person at work, but specifically women, and to be able to support them and help them. It was very like a Trojan horse thing where like we all were Catholic, but the company wasn't specifically Catholic. And we helped women live ordered lives. Like we were saying, God, husband, children, work. And so how do you do that when you have a career and things like that? And so that's where the company initially established. And like with any entrepreneurial ambition, it always ends up in a different place than what you initially thought. Like a company will go through so many variations of what the company looks like, sometimes multiple times a year. And if you're following where the Holy Spirit goes, like that's how entrepreneurship works. And so
That fortitude.
yeah. And so, through many like selling different portions of the company, getting other people on, different partners, things like that, throughout the different, iterations, that's the word, iterations of the company, it developed into, still forming and developing the human person at work, but it's a leadership development company. So specifically in terms of leadership, whether it's for a C-suite company, C-suites for a corporate company, or it's, we worked a lot with doctors, and developing their leadership skills with their staff. And so while the mission is still incredible, I had to really look at what I was doing and think, gosh, is this where my talents are best used? Is this when I'm hopefully seeing God when I die? I want him to say, like, well done, good and faithful servant. And is this job, is this using my talents, to my God-given talents, to the best of my ability, or am I leaving stuff on the table? And after really, really thinking about it, it was the hard truth that there's a lot of talents that are from God, but also that I enjoy diving into more, that I don't have the capacity to use because I'm working, on West. And so yeah, I stepped away from I was CMO of the company, and so I stepped away from it. And as crazy as that sounds, because you build a company for 4 or 5 years and you have a lot of hopes and dreams, the goals of the company, while still incredible, and I'm so excited for where the company will go in the next 5 years, it's not my goals. And so they just don't align, and that's okay. So I don't know what I'm doing now. It's a total, like, Holy Spirit, I'm giving this up because I know that there's another opportunity around the corner, but you have to be able to have your hands open in order to receive something. And they were completely full. Yeah. So there was like zero capacity to even see what the next opportunity is.
Like you were just so overwhelmed with what was going on that it's like, I know that there's more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's scary, but
you.
that's where I am.
Fortitude kicking
Another
in.
thing. It's just where, wow. We'll have to get an update of it from you eventually.
Yeah.
For people of what that leap of faith led you to.
What's
honestly.
next? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's always like when people are like, what's your, tell us your conversion story. It's like, well, I'm living it. Like I'm still living that story. And it's the same thing of like, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'm like, you will forever continue to figure what you want to be when you grow up.
Totally. Exactly.
Ever evolving.
Yeah. Wow.
So I guess with all of your entrepreneurship and, leaps of faith, anything through your childhood and upbringing, do you think any of that helped really shape like your grit and determination that you've had on your business journeys and everything that you've going through?
Absolutely. I think I was saying in the beginning, like when you do something hard, it stretches that capacity of doing something hard. So I kind of see it like a rubber band. Like a rubber band's like really, really tight and short when you first use it. But you put it, it's like such a bad analogy, but like you put it around a chip bag and it like stretches a little bit. And then it's like, oh, it's a bigger rubber band now. Like it can fit more in it. Like it can hold more. And so it's kind of like that with your capacity for doing hard things, where I was kind of thrown into it as a child, and a bad situation kind of turned into one of my biggest blessings. And what is it they say? It's like your wounds can become your biggest cause. Like that's kind of what it really is although I was searching for a woman of who I wanted to live life like, I can now, I always ask that like God can make me that woman so that other people can see that it's possible as well. And so like I want to be that woman that I always searched for but didn't have. And so that's been like my personal mission throughout all this, and that would not have been my mission if not for my childhood. but also like that rubber band is still stretching, you know, through every hard thing. It's the confidence that like, I don't know what I'm doing, but like even now I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing for work, but we're going to figure it out. Like God and I and my husband, like we're going to figure it out because what is my other option? And two, God is not going to waste my talent. Like there's no way. And it's like kind of when people are searching for their husband even, and it's like God's not going to let you miss your own vocation. Like that doesn't exist. That's not a thing. You can't just miss your future. Like that's not how it works. And so it's always kind of resting in that trust of God has literally not led me astray any other time. And anytime I take a big chance, God rewards me with something that I could never even see. But I had to leave the door open. I had to take that first step of blind trust to let my hands go of something that was really great, but not for me, to be able to grasp something that is for me. And so, yeah, I think my childhood primed me for all that for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, why don't we dive into then you and Patrick, how you met, leading up to moving to Japan, having your baby, and then now being home or being where you're at.
Home. I know. We were set up by mutual friend, dated for 6.5 months, engaged for 6.5 months, and then we got married. And then 6 weeks later, he's active duty Navy for the USA, and and they were like, "Oh yeah, we forgot to tell you, you're actually going to Japan for 3 years." And so yeah, that was fun. And you leave in 2 weeks. And so, oh yeah, and your wife can't go with you because it's COVID and like she's doesn't have a visa yet, and you know all the things. Oh yeah, and you deploy every year for 7 months out at sea. And I just got rid of my apartment because we moved in together we moved in together. And so I just like literally got rid of my life and moved down to him. And so it was just like, gosh, what the heck do I do? Like my dad lives in Arizona in a 1-bedroom apartment, and I don't even like Arizona. And I don't know, should I move to Charleston because I like Charleston, or should I go? And at the time, like obviously I was a part of West, the company, and one of my business partners lived in Kentucky. And so I knew we were going to have a home in Japan, but it wasn't going to be established yet. And my husband would only be there 5 months out of every year. Otherwise than that, he's on a ship in the South China Sea. Like I'm not living with him the majority of every year. So I needed a place to live. And I could live in Japan the whole time, but that's just like super depressing.
And
Yeah.
you wouldn't be able to work there either, right?
No.
Isn't that what it was, right?
It would be really, really tricky. Well, I would be working nights, but if I didn't own my own company, you can't even work. So it's just like this, like I don't have a kid.
Yeah, you would have just been completely alone.
Yeah. And like every woman now that I kind of know, either it's easy to be like a little bit of an alcoholic, a little bit of depressed, and a little bit of a shopaholic. Like you kind of fall into these vices when you're so lonely in a foreign country by yourself and you can't even contact your husband. You're away from everything. And I didn't even know who I was as a wife yet, you know? So I was still trying to figure it out. So just the Holy Spirit, it was very clear. Like I never saw myself moving to Kentucky, but the day we got the news that we were going to Japan, it was like this wild hair was like, you know what, we should buy a house in Kentucky. And so a week later we bought a house in Kentucky and we never even saw it. And the following week we packed up everything and he moved me to Kentucky and then flew to Japan.
It's wild.
Yep. So that's how that worked. So
How did you cope with all that?
it was, you know, when like big things happen, I think God grants you this crazy level of determination, but also crazy level of busyness where you don't have time to sit and sulk. Yes, I had my moments, and Jordyn knows I've had my moments. But the moments happen at the appropriate time. They don't happen when it's go time. Like you don't have this. If I was just, I don't know how to describe it. You have to pivot. Like sitting there and feeling sorry for yourself is the least productive thing you can do. And it actually like hurts. And I'm not just, you know, you shouldn't look at life just as like,
it does
what's the
hurt more
biggest.
when you just sit and sulk and say, poor
Right.
me.
Right. And obviously, everything isn't defined by productivity, but when you have a certain amount of time and, you're just married and you only have 2 weeks, like everything is kind of on the countdown. And so it's just think fast and, I don't know, act bravely and just do it and know that this is not by accident as much as by accident it did feel like, which part of me still feel like the Navy did do it by accident, but it's not by accident and God's choice.
God has really forced your hand into trusting him. He's like, Cece, you don't get a choice. You have no other option but to trust me.
And I'm like, how many more times? But then a big trial comes and I'm like, I just don't, you second guess yourself. This is why they keep happening, because my first thought is like, no, that's probably not right.
Like,
Someone else is
everything
wrong
that's-
here.
Everything that's happened in your life, he was like, oh, I really hope this doesn't happen. And then God's like, here you go. It's happening. You're like, I don't want to marry military. And then you met Patrick and you're like, I'm marrying military. And then it was Japan is the last on the list. There's no way we're going. You go to Japan. And then same thing with like your timeline of getting pregnant with Stassi. You were kind of like, I really hope I'm not pregnant this time coming back from visiting him. And then you're like, I'm pregnant.
And I'm having him when he deploys, or I'm having the baby when he's not here.
Yeah, no, it's
Everything has just been like, you didn't want that. Here you go.
well, that's why it's like
Expect it. Yeah.
it's just funny. Well, it's not funny, but it is that you've had all these things, and it's exactly what she's saying. He's here you go. Here's this hard thing, and you're just like casually. So I quit my job. I resigned, and you're super chill about it and at peace. And I feel like so many people would be like, I'm kind of panicked and I don't know what's coming next, and I can't believe I just did that, but I did it. And you're just like, yeah, cool. I've done harder things.
Yes, that's what it is. It's like on the scale of doing hard things, this is so small. And so you kind of just grow this tough skin around it, and tough skin in the best way, where it's like, I've carried heavier crosses. Like having a long distance marriage for the first 3 years of our marriage and raising our baby alone for the first 7 months, that was a heavy cross. Quitting my job, very small cross,
For sure.
And so it just grows, and that faith. And yeah, I mean, there's no other way to put it. But I mean, it was devastating when Patrick left, for sure, because you have all these dreams. Your whole life you dream about what your marriage is going to look like.
Especially those first 3 years are like honeymoon phase of marriage. It's like the best part of it.
Totally. I mean, yeah, you know.
most.
Yeah. Exactly.
So how did you manage getting through those months that you weren't together? What did you guys do, or what did you do to help yourself? Because when he was out at sea, you couldn't talk to him, right? There were no phone calls.
Yeah, we had email here and there. Honestly, that first deployment, I just like cried in adoration. That's it. I'm not saying it's easy or happy. Oh my gosh, just because you have the confidence that you can do something hard doesn't mean you're happy about it or that you like your life.
Right.
Like none of that is a guarantee that you're going to like your life. Like that's not part of holiness. That's not part of what God promises you. He doesn't promise, eternal life and being happy all the time. That's not really what it's about.
No, it's all about carrying your cross and trials and getting through it.
Yeah. So if you're comparing the hard things in your life to what it looks like to be happy, I mean, you're going to be forever comparing, because it's just not the goal. The goal's not happiness. And I think for me, it's always, I just want to be at a place where I feel at peace. That's what I want. And happiness will come, but doing hard things isn't fun.
Right.
But you can feel at peace doing something hard.
Yeah, peace
For sure.
Peace is everything.
It really is.
Yeah.
So,
do you want to give like a little timeline of when you got pregnant and how the birth went? Just a little bit about that and the blessings and hardships and all of that.
So it's so cool too, because our timeline of like how we got pregnant was also just another testament to God always knowing what's best, because we were totally open to having a child from the start. And granted, I didn't see my husband a lot, but the fact that we got pregnant, so we had already gone through 2 years, 2 deployments, 2 7-month deployments. And it was the middle, I got pregnant like the middle of his second deployment, because they like split their deployment, like 7 months deployments, but they come back for 2 weeks in the middle so that the ship can get maintenance done on it. So I always would go back to our house in Japan when he would come back for 2 weeks. So like the fact that, 2 years of marriage, I still wasn't pregnant was like so crazy. We were pregnant once, but we miscarried. That baby would have been born in the middle of deployment as well. And so that kind of felt, I mean, Jordyn, you know how hard miscarriages are, but at the end of the day, sometimes you look back and you're like, oh, I understand. It's hard to say that, but if you've been through it, it's like somehow that loss makes sense, and that timeline makes sense. And so the first baby, we lost, but there was so at peace with it at the same time, because it just felt like this isn't the right time. Like this is.
Were you alone going through that, or did that happen to be when you were with him?
I was in Japan, thank goodness. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like May of 2022. We lost the baby, and then we got pregnant again September of 2022. I'm pretty sure that was the timeline. Or sorry, 2020. Wait, what year is it? No.
Got pregnant in 2023, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah, because she'll be 1 next month.
Yeah.
2025.
I can't remember if we miscarried 2022 or 2023. Either way. Anyways, it just wasn't the right time. Like, it didn't feel like the right time. And honestly, there was no good time to be pregnant at all for Patrick to actually be there for the birth. But we got pregnant the fall of 2023. And when she was due at the end of May 2024. And that's when he always leaves for deployment again. So we didn't know he was going to be there for the birth until 2 weeks before the birth. And so, yeah, that was actually probably the biggest trial. That was harder than him leaving for Japan, was me continually waiting on some random guy to tell him yes or no. Yes, fly back to America to have your child be born. And so he did end up getting to.
Didn't it kind of happen on a fluke too? Like the ship broke down, so he was actually going to be in Hawaii for a while or something?
It like totally, he got no. They said, no, you can't come back. And then a few days later, his direct boss, it was like his boss's boss's boss, said no one is leaving at all this deployment for any babies. And then his boss was like, gosh, this is really bad. I was there for my child's first birth. We don't have an active war going on. He should be there for his child's first birth. So he found this like job that they needed someone to do in Hawaii, to be this liaison between, the bases in Hawaii with the ship for deployment. And they needed like a liaison to be there for a few weeks in the first part of deployment. And so he was able to take that job over and come back for the birth, be with us for 7 or 9 days. And thank goodness the baby came during that time, because I don't know what we would have done. The baby came a week early. So then he actually had time with her, and then he left, and then he saw her again that summer. So
That's insane.
He didn't come. I mean, this is his first time living with us, was January of this year. So, yeah, he only was with her probably 3 weeks up until she was 7 months old. Yeah. So,
Wow. That's crazy.
yeah, it is pretty gross. It's so unfortunate, but also truly looking back on that, I'm like, I don't want to I don't want to get too cocky with God, but if I did that, like I feel like I can confidently take on whatever comes. But don't quote me on that, God, because
Please don't throw anything my way right now.
because my word of the year is stability, and I'm really striving for that. So I need God on my team with 2025 stability.
Can we not test my fortitude anymore? Just give me a break.
You're off.
Can I
at
just?
least.
I need a break. I need a break.
You really need
Oh,
a year
man.
off. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm
that's where
taking
we're
a break of fortitude.
The-
We are on a break. We are fully broken up at this point. Like, yeah.
oh man. Okay, so how did you manage your emotions during postpartum then? I mean, it's different for everyone how their emotions are after postpartum, but just being on your own. Do you have a support system? What went on?
It was hell. Period. Like it was I would literally, and it wasn't like a hormone thing. Like, yes, you have a lot going on, but it was just terrible, truly. And there's like no sugarcoating it. Like, I love my baby more than anything, but I would not wish that on anyone.
I
Truly.
mean, the first, 4 months of being a mom with a stable life here is hard. Like, for myself. Like, those
Yeah.
first 3 months.
And
it
having
was like,
family around and
uh-huh. It's still a major adjustment and exhaustion and everything with this very stable life and
Yeah.
husband present. I could not imagine.
it was terrible. And Anastasia, my daughter, she like wouldn't be put down until like 10 to 12 weeks. So anytime you put her down, she'd just cry. So that was really, really hard because it was just like, please, I would have we hired a postpartum doula that would come like once or twice a week for a few hours. And I'm just like, please just like, just hold her. Like, just, I don't want to do anything involving her right now. I just want to sit and stare at a wall. That's all I want to do. I want to sit and sleep. I was getting 2 hours, 3 hours of sleep total a night. I was just like, please just hold her, and I don't want to see you guys while I'm paying you to be here. I just want to do laundry.
Yeah.
I want to do dishes, and I want to be normal, and then I will go back into mom mode when you leave. But
And that was how many weeks that lasted like that?
up until probably 10 weeks. And then she started napping in her crib, and I moved her out of my room. And moving Anastasia out of my room was like the best thing I ever did. That was like the biggest game-changing moment of being a single mom in that time, was having a nighttime routine. And yes, I was getting up 6 times a night, but I was getting up and leaving my room and then going back into my sanctuary, even though I was going to get back up and do it again 90 minutes later. But it was so much better instead of rolling over, having the baby in the bassinet. And I will burn that bassinet because I just look at it and I get chills. Truly, I look.
It's like such PTSD.
Oh my gosh. I was just putting it away because we just moved. And I just looked at it and I'm like, I don't ever think I want to see that again.
Get a new one for the next baby.
Yeah, actually, I think I'm just gonna sell that because I can't even look at it. I'm just like trauma. But it gets better.
Oh,
like
man.
it got better. It
Yeah.
gets so much better. And like motherhood, I absolutely love it. But I'm not gonna tell you that I'm like not riddled with fear for my next child because of how postpartum was. And it wasn't even like this depression thing. It was truly just so tired. And anytime my husband deploys, I'm sad and I lose weight. And that's how it is. But then on top of it, you're like tired, sleepy, also hungry, but I can't bring myself to eat. You know, I'm sad my husband left, but I'm also sad I was more sad that he wasn't experiencing Anastasia's first stages of life. I'm sad he's not here with me. And yes, doing it alone is hard, but thinking of him being away from us and how helpless he felt was the harder thought than doing hard things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I still think of it as like a craziness that I didn't get pregnant the first year or the second year, but we were still fully open to life and just like whatever God wanted. And he was like, this third year, this is the right time. And his deployment was kind of funky, this third one, because he was back doing training in America quite a lot. So we were able to visit him in San Diego, visit him in Nevada for doing different training, weeks of training. So that was really cool that he wasn't just in Asia. We were able to easily travel here and there and see him. So it was like, looking back, truly, it was all perfectly orchestrated by God, of the timing of it all, as it always is when you look back and you see that. There was someone that was telling me, like, have you ever seen a tapestry, like something you hang on a wall, or like a crocheted blanket? If you look underneath it, it's so messy and there's just strings everywhere. But then you flip it over and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't understand like how that picture all makes sense. And that's seriously what life is it's just like, you're looking at it from underneath. It's so messy. You can't possibly understand the purpose or how any of these strings even make sense or attach. And then you flip it over and you take a step back and you're like, this is my life. This is incredible. And God orchestrated all of that. But it's so easy to just see it as like this messy, jumbled, like purposeless kind of takes, whatever,
Like,
the
what
next
are you
day.
doing, God?
Yeah.
How is this possibly benefit my life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm just, sewing this string today because that's what I do. And I don't know how this is even purposeful or where this goes, but here I am changing another diaper.
Oh,
All right. Well, then let's move on to your current stage that you're going through of having Patrick back, the adjustment into married life, even though it's 3 years in, but you're together now, living together, parenting
Yeah.
together, all of that kind of stuff.
He is amazing. He actually thought the adjustment was going to be pretty smooth. And I was like, I don't know, I just don't think that. And I think I was right. It's not bad by any means, but it's exactly actually how I thought it would be. I think at this point, I'm really good at expecting and gauging how something will go realistically. And I'm not like here to be a Debbie Downer or anything, but it's definitely hard. I mean, when they brief you for the families for deployment, they have, like the counselor on base come in or whatever and walk you through a PowerPoint. And they're like, yeah, so typically with families, it takes 6 months to fully, rest back in from a deployment. And it was just cruel when they were telling us that. It was just laughable, but also like tears a little bit like forming, because they're like, so yeah, it takes 6 months. And I'm like, great. Well, my husband is home for 5 months and then he deploys again. And he does that 3 years in a row. So we will never adjust. Thank you for this briefing. Have a nice day. This is so unhelpful. But that's what the military is. They're just like, yeah, so it should take 6 months, but he's going to be gone after 5 and you're going to have to do it again. So zero thinking about how this will affect anyone in the audience. But total side tangent.
Just fortitude having to happen a little bit more for you.
Exactly. But I was like, at least there's going to be at least a 6-month transition, and then you add a kid into it and you're moving again and stuff. So there's, a lot more transition there. But I think the moving probably helped because we're forming a life together versus him coming into my life in Kentucky that I developed. And when we were in Japan, it was kind of like we lived together on vacation because we wanted to do all the fun things. And there was no sense of normalcy there because we only had a certain amount of time. We didn't have our friends or family. And, you kind of just go on vacation every weekend because you can. Because, like, why not make the most of it? And so now it's this sense of getting to the point of stability, figuring out what the norms are, learning each other's routines. You grow so much. And I'm not saying you grow apart, but you grow so much as humans over 3 years and different opportunities for fortitude. And you become almost a different person, right? And so you're having to get to know who you married again in a way. And it doesn't feel foreign. He doesn't feel like a stranger by any means. But I mean, we're not who we are 4 years ago. It's just the
you
fact
also
of it.
were established as a mom. This is how I do things. This is how we've been functioning. And now you're mom with a dad actually around. So it's like, what does that look, that's got to be a big challenge alone.
A girlfriend of mine who had a child when her husband was deployed said that looking back, it was actually one of the biggest perks because she got to develop who she was as a mom, and then she got to add in being a wife. But versus Jordyn, you had to figure out what being a mom and a wife looked like at the same exact time. And I kind of had this, like my girlfriend was saying, this split focus where I could like fully focus on being a mom. And then I could add in being a wife once you kind of got the hang of what being a mom looked like. And so I do see that as a little bit of an advantage, but also you really have to let go of control. And I always have to tell myself, like, just because he's not doing it like how I would do it doesn't mean he's doing it wrong. And so that was really, really big. And he's such an incredible dad, and he does so many things way better than I would ever do them. And yeah, I mean, it truly is. I think what I missed a lot was the opportunity for growth, truly, because marriage, you are constantly having to look at yourself in the mirror. That is what the vocation does, is it truly is like God does to you. But when you're in your vocation, it's just this constant working on yourself. Every comment you make, every word you say, every action, however you do it, you are constantly tweaking it to better the other person in the marriage. And I think I really missed the opportunity for growth. And although, yes, it can be the hardest parts of marriage is always having to look inward and be like, gosh, what did I like mess up there? How could I say this better? It actually is so much more encouraging because it's like we're doing it together and we're growing together and we're figuring it out because like we chose each other to do that for the rest of our lives. And it's just so much better being a mom with someone else to change a dirty diaper. So
Gives you a little break here and there.
yeah, we can share them.
Yeah.
And I will say, you know, there have been many times where I'm like, well, I did that for 7 months, so you can change
You
that
said that when you
diaper.
were here. He said that when you were here, and he goes, "That's not fair, and you know it." I know, but I still like to pull it.
I do. I'm like, it hasn't run out yet, okay? It will run out at a year, but I'm gonna keep milking it for 1 more month. So
love it.
yeah, that's where we're
So
at.
funny. Well, I guess you just kind of hit some of those last few questions, but I guess how is it now that you guys can like actually just talk to each other and say your random thoughts to each other rather than just what can I cram into this email this week?
It's so interesting you said that because I was just thinking about this other day. Like, there's so many times where even now I'm like, oh, I want to say that, but it feels too exhausting to repeat myself or write it up. And then I'm like, oh, well, he's my husband. He's right here. I should just say that. But I'm still having to get out of this mindset of if I want to explain something to you, I need to sit down 10 minutes and type up an email and then wait 2 days for you to answer it back. And so at the end of that, it's just not worth saying.
Yeah.
Because by the time you email about it back, I just don't even care about it anymore. How many comments do you make where, you know, you're having a conversation with your husband or best friend? You're like, really, this conversation doesn't matter, but it still connects you all. And so I still second guess that in my brain of, it's not worth saying because then I have to wait 2 days, you know, to go back into that mindset and have the conversation about it. And so it's still untraining my brain of, no, I can just
You
like,
could just spew out your
say-
unfiltered thoughts of, oh, I had this funny thought today. I'm going to tell you it.
yes.
It's just not natural for you to do that yet.
Yeah, so it's still breaking that cycle. Or you're like, oh, I want to tell you that, but it sounds way better if I could just tell you. Like, I don't know how to type this up with punctuation and stuff. It's just not worth it, you know?
Yeah.
So, but it's incredible. And, you know, I'm not expecting this to be rainbows and butterflies. Like, I'm never going to expect that. It's so unreasonable. But I'm also not like waiting for the next foot to drop, which is a really good feeling. Because I think for a while there, it was like, yes, I'm going to stay positive. Yes, I'm going to live in this, make the most out of what's going on right now. But I'm also waiting for the next foot to drop. And so that I'm not caught off guard, you know, so that I'm ready and armed and prepared. And I think now it's almost like every trial we've built up this armor and I don't need to wait for the next foot to drop. Whatever happens, I feel ready. I'm not like constantly on edge. And I feel like I can finally, for the first time in 3-4 years, I can take a deep breath and mean it. Yeah.
And like kind of be a little more present and stable feeling.
Yes. 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 There's something about
Pretty
having,
relieving.
oh my gosh, there's something about having all your pots and pans in one house or like all your clothes in one house. Underrated.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I never thought I'd have 2 homes. I always thought one day we could dream about having a lake house, but I'm not very interested in that at this point because I'm like, I just want one house, one set of things. That's it.
So funny.
I know.
Well, maybe as like a wrap up question, when you kind of, zoom out on your life and you look at all of it, what's your number one, hardest challenge? I mean, you said that postpartum was hell, but which one's your top trial of life thus far?
think-
And hopefully it stays that way. But
Thank you. I think it is postpartum because, when you're living without your husband, yes, it's a constant reminder, but you get in the groove. It's not like he's there every morning, waking up in bed and saying, see ya, not here, But every morning when you wake up with a newborn, you can't ignore it. You can't, it's screaming at you.
Yeah.
There's no, let me just kind of live in this ignorance for a little bit and get my mind off of it. There's none of that. It's, you're in it and you can't get away from it. And so that was definitely the hardest. And I had family that came in and friends that came in, and I'm so grateful, but it was still really hard because you can't, what is the best way to say it? It's like, you're not going to feel at peace when something is so unnatural. There's nothing natural about you being without your husband when you have a newborn baby. That's not natural. So the expectation can't be, wow, this is going to feel great. I'm going to feel at home and things are good, because you're living disordered, whether it's your choice or not. It's disordered to what God wants. And so knowing that and knowing that I can make the best out of this, but at the end of the day, this is not right. And this is not, I don't know. So that was the biggest trial, but also probably one of the shortest span trials, like 12 weeks, like 10 weeks.
Yeah.
That's so small in the grand scheme of 3 years of living apart from your spouse. But it was so intense. And that was probably the biggest cross for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think was the biggest blessing that you've had out of all of these trials in your life?
Truly, it's the confidence. Yeah. Because it's not something that you can just turn on. It's something that you have to build. It's built over time, and the passage of time has to happen to develop the confidence. And I think it's something too that a lot of people desire and a lot of people want. And it's something that I feel so grateful for, because it sounds kind of meta, but I'm confident in my ability to be confident. Does that even make sense?
Totally.
yeah.
That like what comes, it's not this cockiness of, I can do whatever. I can do it all. I'm a girl boss. That's not it at all. It's like this intrinsic, deeply rooted trust in God that what comes, I can do and take care of. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of things where like I do it halfway and, I do it sloppy and I don't do it the best, but I'm doing it. And I know that what happens, like, that is on purpose. There's a confidence that what happens, it's not by this like crazy accident. It's all purposeful, and it will all be for me at the end of the day. Yeah.
Awesome.
So
Well,
there we
I
have
love
it.
it. Thank you for
Oh my
sharing
gosh.
all of your life with us.
Yeah, and giving your time.
Of
Very
course.
appreciated.
You guys are so great. And I hope that this is able to bring like more people to listen to all the other virtues that you guys talk about, because it's pretty incredible and no one's doing it. And again, I'm like, shoot, I don't even know. Like every time I listen, I'm like, I don't even know that was a virtue. Like
Every time we plan for one, I'm like, so what is this about?
like so much research does have to go into it, and Rachel's way better at researching than I am. Just every time I show up and I'm like, I have these notes here.
But that's
we make it
great
work.
because that's what makes it the best is like the different personalities aspects bring the relatability, bring the, actual catechesis of it and everything. And
Yeah.
it's so great. So
Well, and I tell her it's part of my job at school too. This works well because it goes hand in hand with what I do already. So
Yeah.
I have more time to give to it because I'm already giving time to learning virtue anyway. So
Mhm.
when my sister was like, hey, teach a class on virtue, I'm like, cool. Who knows anything about virtue? There's not even like a curriculum for this. The heck? So I don't know.
here you are, just casually creating a curriculum.
Yep. Pretty much.
Way to go.
It's so cool. Well, thank you guys. I so appreciate it. And I can't wait to share this.
I know.
Yeah, me too. So thank
you so
you.
much. So good to just like talk about your life. I
Yeah.
love you.
I love you guys too. I know it is kind of cool to reflect because you forget. It's good to take time to reflect, and I'm not wanting to sit still and journal my life. I'm like, wow, I could be doing so
You
many
just
other
keep going.
things. Yes, exactly. So again, it's
Picking up each cross.
Yeah.
it's my fatal flaw that I just
Looking
keep going
back.
and don't reflect because I'm
You're
like,
like-
it's too hard.
Yeah, seriously. You're like, oh, this is a lighter cross. Thank you. This is a nice change up.
Uh-huh.
Like, oh man. Well, awesome. And thank you to everyone who listened to this episode.
Yes.
And thanks for being our guinea pig on an interview version of a virtue. So,
Of course. All
Yeah,
right. Well,
it was
we'll see
great.
you guys.
all right.
Thanks for listening to the Wannabe Saints podcast.
If you have a question or topic you would like us to cover, reach out to us at wannabesaintspodcast@gmail.com or on Instagram at wannabe_saints.
You can find the link in our show notes.
Thanks for listening, and God bless.